Hello, ladies. Today I am using a new app to do this Facebook Live. So it's eCam. So this way I can share my screen with you today. So bear with me, my first time going live with it. But yeah, so what we're going to be talking about today is the how to plan out your launch plan in Trello. So I actually asked on Instagram today if you'd prefer if I showed you how to do it in Asana or Trello, and Trello won. So here we are. So I'm actually going to be showing you like a complete launch plan in Trello, exactly how it's mapped out. So today is going to be really cool. All right. So let me make sure that this is actually broadcasting on Facebook. I'm gonna make sure good there. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna switch over my screen. And let's go into Trello. And I'll share my screen with you. All right, so I can't see if you guys have like comments or anything while I'm sharing my screen. So let me just open up my app on Facebook just to be sure. Perfect. So I should be able to see any comments you have. Awesome. Okay, so as you can see, I broke this down into 4 different stages of the launch period. So you have the initial planning stage. You get that big idea and you're kind of like, okay, like what is this going to be? What is this program I want to create? And how am I going to make this happen? And this is when you start laying the groundwork for the rest of your plan. Then I have the pre-launch. Really, the pre-launch is when you are doing the most work as far as like creating. So if you have to create anything for your offer, you're doing it then. You're creating your weekly content for like your blog or your podcast. You're creating your social media posts. You're doing like live streams in Facebook or Instagram. You're doing a lot of stuff during the pre-launch because you already planned it in the launch plan phase. Now we have to execute and get everything ready, warming up to the launch. So you're warming up your audience with all that content, the social media posts, the weekly content, and you're also planning for your list building event. So this is when you're planning and creating stuff for your challenge, your webinar, your video series. It's all happening during this pre-launch stage. And then I have a column for the launch. And so, while the launch is going, you've pretty much like created everything during your pre-launch. So you've written like all your launch emails, they're scheduled. Your launch like social media posts are pre-scheduled. Most of them, obviously, if you're like hopping on doing any lives, then you would do that like as the week goes, and you would just add that to this launch section. But a lot of your stuff during your launch period is pre-scheduled because you're going to be also busy during your launch, like welcoming new students, new members in your program. So you want to have as much done ahead of time for your launch so that you can focus on, dealing with any tech issues that might happen and kind of just like going through that process of onboarding new students and new clients. And then the last phase is your post-launch. So this is just when you would kind of do like those little things at the end. Like you would, check what the conversions were, check where people were coming from. Did you get a lot of people from Instagram who bought? Did you get, were most of your sales from your email list? Did a lot of people buy after you did a Facebook Live? This is when you would just check like what worked, what didn't, what you would kind of change for next time, and just kind of like debrief after your launch to see like anything you would change, anything you would improve, anything that went like super amazing. You would absolutely do that again in another launch. You're just documenting that all so that you're refining your launch process every time you launch so that it's better and better and better. So let's just kind of do a breakdown of how I set this up in Trello. So you have these 4 categories, and it's exactly like this would be step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then you would just start to go down. You start with that big idea. You kind of do a brain dump of what this idea is, how you think you're gonna like get it out there, just like kind of who it would be for, things like that, and just like brainstorming here. You're not getting really into specifics, like you're not like mapping out the modules of your course or anything, but you're kind of just brainstorming, getting those ideas out there. And then this is when you're just planning. So really all of this is like planning for your pre-launch and your launch. So you're kind of mapping out like your content, your intro opt-ins, like a PDF they're gonna get. So I broke this down into, it's much easier to have it broken down this way so you can see as you go through. Kind of just like, okay, I got all this done. Now we're moving to the pre-launch, just checking these things off. And then, so each card is like its own like main task. And then, so let's see. So like the create content map. I'm also going to have a blog post teaching you all about how to create your content map next week for your launch. It's super, super amazing. You're going to have to read it. But so I set this into like a bigger task, but like obviously there's a lot of pieces to creating your content map. So then I broke them all down into subtasks. So then you can just check off as you go. So like these, even though it may seem a lot like, oh, this one has 8 tasks to do, you can check off a bunch of these at a time. The key to having everything in your project management system and making like a really manageable launch is to break everything down into tiny, tiny tasks. So like if something can be done in 5 minutes, like you want to break it down into such small tasks that you are just knocking things off of your to-do list and you're working your way down so that it doesn't look, you're not so focused on that big picture and you're not focused on, kind of like just a big overall launch in general that might seem overwhelming. But when you break it down and say, oh yeah, I can absolutely come up with my main content category that I'm going to be talking about for the next, 8 weeks. And then you check that off and then you create your content pillars off of that. Super easy. Maybe take you like 2 minutes. Check that off. And then start adding your subcategories and just keep going down. And then once you're done with that, you would just, you would obviously have due dates. So once I know like my launch date, I give myself like an 8-week period. So I've been talking about that this week, and the free 8-week launch calendar breaks down the 8-week launch. But I typically like to say like, okay, like I'd be like mentally prepared, workload prepared to start planning this launch on this date. And then I'll give myself like a week for the plan phase, and just start adding due dates to things as they come. So like this whole launch plan section, I might add just like different dates within 1 week of each other. So I would set aside 1 whole week for every to-do list over here in the launch plan. Just come over here, pick the due date of when I'm going to start that. And let me know if you have any questions on that. I'll try to check my phone, see if any comments come in on the live. So just add in your due dates. So like, that's why I've broken it up like this too. So with this create content map, this is something like you could set due 1 day, and this could be your entire focus for the day. And you can just work on this, or you can set aside 2 days for this, depending on how much time you have to work. But just add due dates that, are manageable with your schedule, but you're also like kind of pushing yourself. You don't want to just like keep saying, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I didn't get to it today. I'll do it tomorrow. And then like 3 months from now, your idea is still just sitting in a notebook or a Google Doc and you haven't like done anything with it. So this whole project management board is meant to help you go from idea to launch in a really easy way so that you know exactly what to work on every single day. Just add in your due dates, go through everything, and just follow like from top to bottom. And then once you're done with this, okay, now we're on to the pre-launch. Here we go. You've picked out like your launch dates, you've set up your list building event. And then so sometimes for my launch, during the pre-launch, I will switch it up with a different list building event. So I might have a video series or a challenge, might host a webinar or like a training workshop. So there's different tasks that would go into each of those. So just having those to pull from, like I know exactly what steps it takes to get those done, and just being able to say like, okay, this launch, I just copied my launch board and start to assign out my dates. So like, okay, this is the launch event I'm going to do this time. You can just delete the other card you're not using, and then just go through the workflows. So like you can see these Create Weekly podcast episodes. These are all workflows. So like 40 tasks, I would know I'm going to do, 5 podcast episodes, and I would just go through this and just start, I know like the whole workflow for the podcast episode. So then I just keep track of where I'm at. So I make sure I don't like miss any steps. And, I'm making sure I didn't like forget to create the promo graphics. And then it's the morning the podcast went live and I'm like hopping into Canva, hurrying up, trying to get a graphic done. I know exactly what's due. And then I like that Trello has this like percentage right here. So you can kind of like a little morale booster over here, just pushing you like you're 75% the way there. So just doing that and keeping track of all of the workflows. It's so much easier to have everything listed out like this. Let me switch back to video. And just having everything mapped out like that, where you're not wondering what you have to do every day. You know exactly what you have to do every day. Everything has a due date, which is so crucial during your launch period, because you don't want to, have that launch date in mind and not have a plan mapped out of how you're actually going to get everything done by that date. Because then what kind of that leads to is overwhelm, and you're like stressed at the like right before a launch because you're trying to hurry up and get things done. So having it all mapped out in Trello is amazing, and just having it all like in one place. And then you can start even like in the cards, you can add all your links in there. So as you create your content calendar, you have that linked in there. So everything is easily in one place for your launch. You have like your logo in there. You have, links to like your Google Doc where you're keeping track of your launch emails. And this way you're not like kind of bouncing back and forth, scrolling through Google Drive, looking for things. It's all in one place. You have everything where you need it, and it's just saving you a ton of time. So feel free, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will keep an eye out and try to answer them for you. And I hope this made the process of mapping out your launch and your project management system so much easier and less overwhelming. And hopefully this gave you a great idea of how to set up your project management system. Thank you so much for joining me today.